Blog Talk Radio.
Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot, oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girls. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here's your host, paranormal researcher Patricia Baker, on the one, the only Supernatural Girls.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Supernatural Girls Radio. I'm your host, Patricia Baker, and it is January 11th, 2023. I am here with my co-host, PK. PK, how you doing tonight?
Doing absolutely fantastic. It just feels so good to know that we're going forward to something better. That's why I'm going to see it. And
that's
but you know,
good, isn't it?
Yeah. The year we're in has a lot of vibrations to it, but it's a year to tap into your spiritual side. If we can really take time to think about the spiritual instead of being in such a hurry all the time, I think we might find out we've got a lot more coming to us. And it's a perfect way of looking into things that are really not quite ready to pop yet, but things that we want to know and how to make it happen. And you're going to find out that we're going to tend to be more realistic this year, especially this month. But look into your faith or inspirations more clearly. You're getting messages, but we're missing that. Some of us are, let's put it that way. Because it's perfect timing for the spiritual side, and the ability to learn is just all over the place right now. But at the same point in time, do remember we're still in retrograde until January 18th. So pay attention to any communications of all types, especially if you have to sign something. So also watch how and what you do financially, because that's part of what's going on this month. Next month, different story. But for right now, hold everything close to you and really pay attention to what you see or what you think you see. Might help.
And you did mention last week that secrets would be made known. That
Definitely.
was one of the things you said. And look at what's happening with Biden being exposed for having those confidential documents he wasn't supposed to have, and he doesn't have the legal right to have because he had them when he was a vice president. And you mentioned that we're going to see more of that. And here there was a whole second batch they found, and that's been revealed today. So do you see that as ongoing throughout the year, secrets being made known?
Most definitely. And that's going to be true for all of us. It's going to be the little things that are going to come out and the big things that are going to come out. But I think be careful when you point your finger, because more than likely you're pointing a finger at somebody for what they've done, as we just saw with Biden. Well, it's going to come back and bite you right, you know where you sit.
Well, yes, that's exactly what has happened with that. Yes. I like secrets being made known. I think that's really good.
Oh, interesting. It's a good novel to put together. But everything going on this year is going to be, between now and September, is going to be very different, because we're going to take some of it on the spiritual side, some of it on the learning or teaching side. And there's going to be a lot of legal issues coming up this year. It doesn't matter what type of vocation you have or what you do. There's going to be a legality that's going to pop up. Doesn't mean it's going to be negative, but there's always something that's going to keep us on our toes to pay attention. Don't just assume. Dig deeper if you need to. Don't just let it lay there.
Okay. Well, that sounds
a lot
good.
Of changes.
Yeah, we need some of those. Some for the better, all for the better.
One of the things that I think is most important is our spiritual side is opening up this year to the nth degree. And you're going to find the opportunity we're going to get those aha moments that we think don't refer to us. That's something everybody else deals with. But we're all going to be dealing with some aha moments about our spiritual side. And secrets will be made known that we hadn't expected. And it isn't negative. It's a positive learning tool to go forward. That's the best part. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, this is all sounding very, very positive. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. So tonight we have a really great guest, and we've both been talking about her all week because we're so excited to have her here. It's one of our favorite topics, medical intuition, and we have the top of the line here. We have expert Dr. K. Randall-May. She is an internationally recognized intuitive with specialties in medical intuition and scientific technical intuition for more than 40 years. Now, K. Randall-May has a Ph.D. She has a diverse background incorporating intuition, science, philosophy, religion, metaphysics, and art. She also conducts intuitive readings with clients throughout the world. I had one yesterday. I will be sharing a little bit about that. It was fantastic. Now, Kay's many publications include books on the nature of matter and energy, which directly relate to the physical reality of a multidimensional universe. Her intuitive investigations of the nature of matter form the basis for her understanding of consciousness, including telepathy and extended sensory perception, remote viewing, clairvoyance, interspecies, and transdimensional communication. Now, Dr. Randall-May is Vice President and Secretary of NOMI, the National Organization for Medical Intuition, and is certified as a medical intuitive and counseling intuitive by the American Board of Scientific Medical Intuition, founded by Dr. C. Norman Shealy and Caroline Mace. Now, Dr. Randall-May participated as a professional intuitive in the Kaiser Institute's Intuition Development Program led by Leland and Kevin Kaiser. Additionally, she is recognized as a professional intuitive by the Association for Research and Enlightenment, Agrites, ARE, since the 1980s. Among her work for the ARE, she co-chaired, together with Dr. Henry Reed, several professional psychics conferences. My goodness. We could just keep reading this resume, but I think we just better bring her on the air, okay?
I think that's a good idea.
Dr. K, yes, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Patricia, and thank you so much, PK. It's such a joy to be with the two of you. Your enthusiasm just shines through the radio, and I'm looking forward to talking with you about some of these really important, absolutely astonishing aspects of reality.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. You know, we've heard about you. Your reputation preceded you, and it's fantastic. Everybody said just wonderful things about your expertise, how accurate you are, how helpful your information is. And as I mentioned, I had a reading with you yesterday that was phenomenal, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But let's talk about you. So you have a medical, just a natural medical intuition you've had since you were a baby.
Well, actually, intuition in general, because I was reared in a family here in Phoenix, Arizona, where I was fortunate enough to have a mother, grandmother, father, and grandfather all in the home. I was the only child and only grandchild. And my grandmother was an intuitive. She was a clairvoyant. She had been a nurse, and had she survived and been alive today, she would probably be doing much the same as I'm doing. So from the time I was quite small, she and I were playing games and doing all kinds of interesting activities which were helping to sharpen my abilities. We never stopped and said, now this is the curriculum and this is what you're doing. It's just that they were games and the ways that we saw the world.
Wonderful. What a good basis.
I can give you an example if you choose. For instance, I would often go with my grandmother on little trips in the town, and I can remember sitting with her when I was just a small child. I may have been in grade school, but not much older than that. And she and I were sitting, and people were coming in the mall. Grandmother would be explaining to me what the person looked like before they came around the corner. This is what this person is like. It's a man, it's a woman, this is their dress, this is what they're doing, and then she would say, now it's your turn. Tell me who's going to come around the corner. And so I would just use my remote viewing just naturally to see who was coming around the corner before they came around the corner. This is remote viewing, of course. We never stopped and said this is remote viewing. But these are games that she was taught by her own mother and by her mother's mother, who came from Ireland. And so the abilities, I was told when I was small, are called the second sight. And so I was told from the time I was little that I had the second sight, and it was just natural. Which it is, by the way.
That's great to have training so early on. I mean, not only did you have a natural gift that was in your lineage, but you also had this great training. So it was something that was so normal to you. And that's fantastic. And here you've developed it so well. And obviously people are clamoring for your attention with this.
Well, when I was a little girl here in Phoenix, I wanted to be a parapsychologist. And as in the first year of high school at Phoenix Union High School, we had to write an essay. What are you going to do when you grow up? And I wrote an essay about being a parapsychologist and talking to people and all this stuff. Well, there was no place in Phoenix or Arizona in general where I could study parapsychology at that time. By the time I got out of high school, I couldn't study it. So I had to choose a science. And I'm not good at math at all. Biology, good, solid science. And so I became a biologist, never having regretted it, because this allowed me to do comparative anatomy, physiology, and my degrees, my master's and PhD, are both in biology, of course, primarily studying insects, but more studying the major processes that were going on. So I don't regret having been a biologist. It probably was a better choice than if I had chosen another field.
Right. So this gave you an interesting scientific background as well, so you were able to use both. Now, let's dive right into
body, the physical body. Yeah, the physical body.
So when you work with people, as you mentioned, you work with them over the Internet, so they don't have to come and see you in person anymore. This is easy to do. And when you look with your inner vision at someone, they're obviously coming to you because they're not feeling great and they need some direction, some help. Possibly traditional medicine has put them through the ringer and they haven't gotten the help they've needed, so they're stuck with symptoms, medication that creates more symptoms. And so when you look at somebody with your sight, what do you look for? Is there anything in particular you start with?
Oh, first, let me clarify. People don't merely speak with me about medical intuition. Medical intuition is one of my specialties. Many times people talk with me because they want to know about their talents. They want to know about life paths. They would like to know more general things about relationships and everything. But I'm not a counselor per se or a therapist. But for medical intuition, what I do, just as I did with you, Patricia, I establish my connection energetically and clairvoyantly with the individual. Ordinarily, I ask that a person send me a photo of themselves. Could be a handwriting sample. However, those are not truly needed, because years ago when I was working with my own physician way back in the 1980s and early 90s, to try and really hone my skills as a medical intuitive, I worked on close to 100 cases with my own physician, just having patient numbers. And there would be nobody in the room with me. There would be other people who would be questioning me, saying, okay, what is case number so-and-so and so-and-so? But I didn't know names. I didn't know anything about the people, alive, dead, or anything. And in that way, I would then get, what I get are clear images internally. I see others clearly, and have then a clear sense. Sometimes I feel, but primarily it is through inner vision or visualization. For an individual, I have set up usually a routine where I go through the energy body and the physical body, and I look at, starting at the first or basal chakra, I look at how grounded they are, and then I look at their skeleton, the neuromuscular, I look at the immune system, I go through and I look at the different systems. I look to see if there are any pathogens that I can identify or recognize. And because I'm a biologist, I'm very familiar with parasitology. That was one of my favorite classes in school. And so I look at parasites, but not merely, is it this one or that one? Is it which one might they be? And trying to get a sense of where they are in the body, what's going on with them. I can give you just an example, for instance, of a case. There was a physician a few years ago, who came to me. I will not give you his name, but he was a dentist, and he had numerous cases of problems with plugged arteries, and he'd had to have several bypasses. But he lived a pretty healthy life otherwise. So when I examined him, I could see that he had an infection of a bacterium, namely chlamydia pneumoniae, which is a very common bacteria that causes pneumonia. And here's somebody who's a dentist, up into the face, of the patients, and he had acquired that. And this is not infrequent with people who have heart problems, especially blockages. So I told him that I saw this, and he went to his physician, the reading, and asked to be tested for this, and his physician tested him, and sure enough, he had it. And the physician came back to me and said, what made you ask to be tested for that? And then he had to explain a little bit about how he acts. But then he was treated for that, and to my knowledge, and that was a few years ago, he hasn't had any further blockages.
Isn't that fascinating?
It's a situation
wonderful.
Where we really be specific, It's and the type of information that I reach for is that type of information, which is helpful, actionable, and specific. I can give you another
That
example.
makes a huge difference. Yeah, please tell us more. Yeah.
Okay. There was a woman that I did reading for several years ago, and of course this was a distance reading. I didn't touch her or anything physically, and with my clients, I don't know anything about it before I start. It's not like people fill out a big health form or something beforehand. And so I did see that she had some problems with her balance and dizziness, and that this was really due to a misalignment of some vertebrae. Cervical, meaning neck vertebra 1 to 5. And so I suggested that she get some chiropractic care, specifically with somebody who does a network spinal analysis, which is a kind of chiropractic that's very specific, very gentle. And she followed through, and the dizziness was resolved. So those are indicators. Those are where it was really, really, I was going to say, a very clear-cut thing. Now, sometimes, and let me define medical intuition for you. Would you like to begin there?
Yes,
please. Definitely.
Medical intuition is a field of practice, which is really becoming much more defined nowadays, and particularly through the work of NOMI, National Organization for Medical Intuition, which is an organization that is just now really coming into its own. And it's an organization which promotes medical intuition and its integration into the healthcare profession on a professional basis. It's really considered a part of the complementary and alternative medical, CAM, medical practices, also the complementary and integrative healthcare, CIH. But medical intuition is the skill of using intuition, intuitive observation and assessment designed to obtain information from both the physical body and the biofield. Now, the biofield is also called the aura. It's called this field around and interpenetrating our body. And so medical intuition pertains to both the physical body and the energy body per se, but it is not diagnosis per se as the medical field would be, or prognosis for saying this is going to happen or that's going to happen. And it also, medical intuition as we define it in NOMI, does not involve healing per se, and certainly not unless the medical intuitive practitioner is also a licensed professional, and many of them are licensed medical professionals, physicians, etc., who are licensed and able to diagnose and prescribe. A medical intuitive should not be prescribing or saying, yes, use this medication or that medication. This is a very important distinction to keep in mind. So at any rate, there often are people who use medical intuition and then incorporate them into other aspects, other skills that they have. So sometimes in my readings, I'm looking for deeper issues that might be underlying the physical issue. In the case of the dentist, it was a very clear-cut thing. He was exposed to the bacterium by his clients who were coughing in his face, and he admitted to me that a lot of times he wasn't wearing a mask, in years past. Right. And so naturally, if somebody had pneumonia or something, he was exposed to it. And the woman who had the neck vertebrae out of alignment, that was pretty clear cut, She was dizzy. Yes. The neck was out of alignment. Yes. She got that into alignment. But sometimes there are deeper emotional issues that might not cause the situation. There might be a physical cause, but they might aggravate it or make it more tense or make it more prolonged. I'll give you an example. A woman came to me. This was in the years when people actually were coming to me before COVID and all, and she could not lift her arm above her shoulder. She came and, she had what was called frozen shoulder. She came and she sat down and it was quite sad, of course. I could understand it. And she said, I've been to everybody and his dog. And this was my last ditch effort. And she said, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing other than surgery. I actually perceived that there was an emotional component to this. And aside from the arthritis that she had and other things that were going on with that, there was anger buried in these shoulders. And so I said, can you tell me a little bit more about your home life? What's going on? I'm married, okay, been married for years. Well, what about your marriage? Well, I hate him. She was angry. She wanted to be out of that marriage, but she was trapped. felt trapped. And so she and I worked. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a therapist, but I just listened to her and talked to her about possibly getting therapy, getting counseling from someone who was certified and capable of doing that, and looking at other options. And I think she came to me 2 or 3 times, and ultimately she was able to lift her arms because she did not feel trapped. Mm-hmm. And one more thing, and we can certainly talk about the nature of matter, because we have to understand that too, so how it works.
Please explain that to us.
Other physicians came to me, and he had a problem of bursitis, again, the shoulder thing. And I tuned into him, and instead of seeing the deep tissues, I saw a bicycle. And I said, how come and see the bicycle here, in your shoulder? And he started to cry. Here was this full-grown man, a professional man, a physician, starting to weep. And he said, well, I love to ride my bicycle, but I can't anymore. My schedule is too tight. I don't have any time, and I really miss it. And so I said, well, why don't you ride your bike to work? He lived in a climate where he could do that. He thought, that's a good idea. So he started riding his bike to work, and his bursitis cleared up. So,
oh my goodness,
it are often these deep things. So how does this work, you asked? I didn't hear that, but maybe you're going to ask me.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing the connections here that are very powerful, and you're able to look inside and see where these things are getting clogged up or blocked, and it certainly makes sense. When you talk about the woman who's married and hates her husband, and both of her shoulders being frozen, of course it adds up. When you start looking at it with an open mind and you see the connection. That's true with all of this.
Very true. Very true.
How does the connection work? How is it that someone sitting in Phoenix can talk to somebody in Australia, as I often do, or to somebody in Canada, or to somebody across town? How does this work? And I think we have to recognize that our present state of understanding of physics and the nature of matter is rather limited. Most of us have been taught from the older perspective, the Newtonian physics perspective, that look around you. I mean, there are these physical objects, and they're there, and you're here, and you might sit on them or move them, but there's no commingling of them, and certainly there's no commingling of your mind and somebody else's mind, right, according to that physics. But in my intuitive work, it's been going on for many, many decades, where I go into deep altered state and work with a team of scientists. Essentially, been revealed and has come through that is that all matter forms and then unforms, and forms again and unforms, billions of times per second. Therefore, there is a physical nature of matter, and there's an energetic nature of the universe. And matter is formed and concentrated energy. When matter is in its pure physical phase of its existence, of course it's separate, individual. But when it is in the pure energetic phase of its existence, it is one, totally shared. There is no position, there's no time, there's no separation. And this is true of our thinking processes as well. We all have a brain, a physical brain, and of course, if something happens to injure that brain, or something happens to cause a problem to that brain, it of course interrupts our thinking processes. But there's more to consciousness than the physical brain. there is, in what I have seen and what I realize in my work, there is what I call a mind field, which is this energetic field beyond the physical brain that manifests through the physical brain every time matter blinks in and out of corporeality. And that mind field has no specific place or time or limitation. And therefore, it is shared. We are all one. And metaphysics often says that. We are all one. This also indicates the possibility for different dimensions. Because this blinking rate is called a duty cycle, and it's always the same in the third dimension. Everything in the third dimension, our dimension that we're conscious of, is blinking in and out at the same rate. But there are other dimensions blinking in and out at slightly different rates. So they are here when we're gone. And so there's these interpenetrating blinking rates. I have seen up to 12 levels of dimensions. And therefore, when we talk about three-dimensional beings, we are talking about those that are sharing our blink rate. But in Einstein, Rosenberg bridges, and other things with black holes huge in the in the universe, where the gravity is so strong that it affects corporeality, we can go from one dimension to another, from 3D into 4D if we want, or otherwise. And so it's absolutely this, I call it saltatory progression, meaning jumping progression, where others in other dimensions, other sentient beings in other dimensions can come from one dimension to another. And that's, that explains a lot of observed kind of propulsion. But we're not here to discuss that. We're here to discuss medical intuition.
We can, but it's helpful to hear that. We often walk down that road during our show and after our show. But I think it's so important for people today to know about your work and the work of Know-Me, and that there are alternatives, because, we speak to people every day, Kay, that are so frustrated with their health. It seems like we're seeing people that are having exposure to many more viruses, flus, whatever, and they're getting sick a lot more. And it's very frustrating for them. Then sometimes it turns into other things, whether it be autoimmune disease or cancer. It's very it's very disturbing, obviously, when you get a diagnosis like that. But one of the questions I have for you about this field of exploration is this. Do you find, because I know everybody's different, all right? Everybody's an individual. Everybody's going to have different things that provoke them into illness. But have you seen any patterns with cancer, or patterns with heart disease, or patterns with autoimmune disease? Any particular things that keep popping up over and over again on other levels?
Oh, yes, of course. When we look at, when I look at cancer, often I'm looking at not only the chakra system, but also at the levels or layers of the bioenergetic field, because we not only have these chakras, which are these whirlpools of energy, we also have layers of the energetic field, the bioplasmic field. That layer which is closest to the body, for instance, called the etheric, and then, of course, we go to the emotional, the mental, the astral, and all the way out. These are actually zones in the bioplasmic field. When they are disturbed, they can be disturbed through many, many processes, trauma, and all kinds of intrusions into the energy field. Then it often leads to disturbances ultimately in the physical body. The energy body changes first, and then the physical body does, the most dense part of the physical body. Mm-hmm. We have to look to digestion. That I believe with some of the, I agree with some of the earliest physicians that all health begins in the gut. Absolutely. And if the foods we're taking in are not energetically whole, and they might have been altered one way or another, or they are just pretty to look at, but they're not energetically complete, then we have deficiencies. But, you know, you mentioned people are getting more ill. Actually, if you were to be a time traveler and to go back 300 years, you would find that there were very few people older than 35 or 40 years of age, because most of them had died before that time. So people died in those times from things that you and I have survived, like abscessed teeth and things like that, because there were no antibiotics and other. Right. They had purer food if they had the food, if they could get it, but often they couldn't get it. And, you know, people didn't know to wash their hands and such. So people were not as healthy as you might think. Nowadays, my gosh, it's not unusual to find people who expect to live to be 100, like I do. I expect to live to be 100 and be healthy and happy. And one of my greatest mentors, Dr. Gladys McGarry, PK, you may have heard of her here in Arizona. Dr. Gladys is an MD and a holistic MD and regular MD. She's 102 years old. 102 years old. And the woman is amazing. So, amazing. You know, all I can say is that people are living longer. Therefore, they have more rates of cancer than they did, you know, in previous years. And it's true, the foods have changed. People need to be more aware. You just need to eat more greens. My motto is, if it's green, eat it.
Okay.
I think it's very, very important to get plenty of chlorophyll and plenty of greens and minimize some of the protein sources, which I think have been, you know, over-manipulated, like beef, etc.
Right.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, it's so when you look at somebody, as you looked at my energy system yesterday, and you can tell how high or low functioning each chakra is, and then that's going to make a difference in their health. So you were giving percentages about that and what needed to improve and what was passable.
I was also looking at your tissues. I was looking down to the level of the histology, that is the cells. The type of remote I do is called the micro-psi, MICRO-PSI, micro-psi. I work with some people down to the level of the genes, not just the chromosomes, but the genes. So we're talking about, you can use remote viewing down to the molecular level. And in my scientific and technical work, I'm constantly working colleagues at the level of the subatomic particles, so that I'm looking at, for instance, that electrons, that when I was a little girl, I was taught electrons were fundamental particles. There wasn't anything smaller. I now know that some electrons have 3 what are called gravitons in them, and some have 4. And there's a big difference that you can do with these things if they have 3 or 4. In other words, it explains gravity, explains magnetism, explains all these things when we see down to that level. So when I was looking at you or any client that I look at, I'm looking at, do these tissues look like what I think they should look like?
Right.
What do these issues look like? And when I say look, intuitively, clairvoyantly. Now, getting back to the cognition, how does this work? I am, through many years of practice and work with this, I've learned how to blend my energy with the energy of the other person. And we have to think about ethics, only with permission and only when it's approved and never any other time. And you essentially merge so that then I bring that into my consciousness. This is a step that has to be learned by someone who's working with us. I also want to clarify with NOMI. NOMI, the National Organization for Medical Intuition, is not a referral organization. In other words, they don't find medical intuitives for people. It is a trade board for people who are working as medical intuitives or studying medical intuition. So it's about medical intuition and bringing it into the world of medicine, but not a referral place where you would go and try to find the medical intuitive. Okay. But if
right.
you are
no, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Studying
Makes
about
good
it,
sense.
you'll find about, yeah.
And one of the things that I really enjoyed in my reading with you, Kay, was just as we were talking before we got on the air, I think it's very powerful to have someone like you be able to give this information. And if you're open to it, the healing begins with that knowledge. So as soon as you shared certain things, I could feel already I was taking in the information and feeling adjustments that were positive adjustments, just based on what you were saying, which I recognized to be true. So that in and of itself made a difference. Just that.
It is empowering.
Did the other things.
To understand things is empowering, and that helps to reduce stress. But also recognize when I am connecting with somebody, even that action of intuitive connection also produces a bit of what's called harmonic resonance. And I really enjoyed what PK was talking about. And she's talking about this year bringing us into greater spiritual recognition, because I think we are growing in harmonic resonance in the universe, truly understanding more about the universe and about the very nature of humankind. And this is empowering. This knowledge is empowering and should be comforting to people.
Yes. And I think I really had a great aha moment with you when we were talking about stored trauma, how trauma gets stored in the body and it becomes very detrimental as that continues on through the years until it's released. And we were talking about how that affects lots of things. And for me, it also affected digestion. And then we were talking about the actual stored trauma. And what we were saying is, well, it's something that's absolutely indigestible. When something happens that's traumatic, lots of times it's very difficult to digest it. There's no framework for it. It's shocking. It's something that, you can't really talk about easily, but it has that effect. So I can see where so many people today have digestive issues. I mean, we're talking about here IBS, we're talking about Crohn's disease, all these labels that are on very painful intestinal situations. And yet when you look back and you identify the trauma where it started, it makes total sense that it would affect the digestion and upset the digestion. So even on that level, just that connection was very powerful to understand that.
I think we need to recognize as a culture that trauma itself and fear is addictive, and it is something which is not entertainment. However, all of us are exposed to different levels of trauma, and the trauma has different long-lasting implications. But aside from the trauma you experienced and what we talked about in your reading, I'm talking about just in general. When you think about the level of trauma that comes to us through the news, comes to us through entertainment, not just around Halloween, although Halloween is really, really distressing, I think. And people think, oh, it's just fun. It's just fun. Really? Trauma is additive, just like grief. It's additive. So it's very important for our culture to wake up and smell the roses about the nature of removing trauma. Avoiding
it's very important.
Yeah,
mm-hmm. Yeah, and not building it back up again.
Yeah,
that's right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it was very, very interesting. This whole experience of identifying certain areas that were troubling my whole system, and then I appreciated the suggestions that you made for trauma release. And you also brought up a couple of supplements I could look into. And then we talked about amino acids, which I really enjoyed. And I had some good success with powdered amino acids. And you had actually mentioned earlier on in the reading that the amino acids they had been clumping up, they had not been assimilated very well. And so I found these powdered ones had worked great, and I started talking to you about it. And then I said, I've had the feeling, this is what I love about working with you, I had the feeling that there were some amino acids that would be more beneficial to scleroderma, which I've had for, 13, 14 years now. And you had me look at the list, because I had a list in front of me on my computer, you didn't, and number the amino acids, which I did, and then you tuned in and you found two of them, number 5 and number 14, and you said these are the two to look into. And obviously, you helped me with the caveats, don't take too much, you've got to figure out dosage and things like that with your professional team. But that was really fascinating because when I looked those up, and they were not common names like lysine or methionine or any of those, it was the two that were rather different. And when I looked them up, they were right on the money for scleroderma. So that was fascinating, and I really liked the fact that you were so flexible to work with me on that. And I'm looking forward to doing some experimentation to see how far I can get with these particular amino acids. Actually, one turned out to be a nucleic acid, which is a little different, but I'm very excited about the possibilities with that. So thank you.
Absolutely. It's my great privilege. The process that we used is one which I have developed over the years whenever there's an opportunity to make a choice among various things. I don't necessarily want to know what they are. As long as the other person that I'm talking to knows what they are, then I tune into you, and through you, in using pure intuition, we get to the number of the one or the letter corresponding to the one. See, the processes we use to answer questions often have to be evolved by the practitioner himself or herself. And I've been doing this for many, many years with trying to get to specific answers. And a lot of the specificity has come through my work in scientific and technical intuition, because there you have to be very, very spot on specific. And so I've had to learn how to fine tune my clairvoyance, the micropsi, in order to try to get to answers.
Can you give us some examples of how you work with your technical intuition? What is that? What are you doing with that?
If you look on, I gave you a list of my books and publications.
Right.
And
we should post that too.
You have a publication
we will.
there. And you also have a book, Inner Visions of Matter and Subtle Energy. That book is based on hundreds and hundreds of sessions in which those pictures that are in there are drawings that I made while in deep altered state, showing the very nature of And then in that one article which you have that I sent you, that people, I presume, can find my website, www.krandall-May.com, and they can look to my publication.
Yeah, just so they know, it's CAYRANDALL May, MAY.com. Okay.
But that is a published article by one of my scientific team about some things that we invented together. One of them something about an oil that carries electricity, which most oils don't. Another one, a certain formulation that could be used in batteries. That's electrical formulation, a different chemistry. All of this kind of thing. All of these having been tested. So, and a lot of the things that I do, of course, are proprietary, so I can't talk about them. But essentially, we're talking about very specific machines and processes. But the medical intuition has been improved. My medical intuition access has been improved by my work in the scientific and technical intuition. And so it's they go hand in glove, so to speak.
So somebody could come to you and say, I'm working on this particular invention, and you can help them with that.
If they, it usually wouldn't be in one session. It might go over a series of sessions. We'd have to work it out, but absolutely. Sometimes they don't want help. They want somebody to just, figure out some way to make things stronger. Someone came to me and said, how do we make diamonds stronger? And I went into altered state and told him how to do that. And he said, oh, well, we already know that. Well, okay, but I didn't know that.
Yeah. Right. Oh, my goodness.
All righty. It's
well, how exciting.
World. But we're probably at the end of the program, but I wanted to tell you the one reading that I did, which I did many years ago, which was the most, I think, inspiring for me. Did you want to know about it?
Definitely. Yes. Well, we have plenty of time. I gave us extra if we needed it, so please go ahead.
Because it fits in with what PK was saying also. Years ago, when I was working with my physician, and I had the numbers, and nobody in the room with me. The physician was never in the room, and I was in an altered state, so I was not looking at anybody. And they gave me this one number, and I couldn't see the individual like I usually do. Instead, I saw a brilliant light. I mean, bright light in my inner vision. And I said, all I see is this bright light. And I was told then, intuitively, that this person is in remission, preparing a party for her. She is very happy. And that's what I said. And then they wrote it down and transcribed it, sent it to the physician, and he graded it wrong. He said, it's wrong, because everybody I've sent these numbers over, they're all very ill. Okay. And he called a few days later, and he said, when was it that you did this? And I told the time. He said, he had passed right before that. Nobody else knew. He didn't know, nobody knew that she had passed. She passed of ovarian cancer, and I saw the light. Oh, my God. And now, a lot of scientists say, that light is nothing but hypoxia. The brain has just got low oxygen. It's just, when people describe going through the tunnel and all that and coming back, it's just illusion. It is not. I saw it. I'm an intuitive. I didn't die. I didn't have a near-death experience, but I saw the light. And she was in remission. She was dead. And they were preparing a party for her. And she was very happy.
That's true.
And to me, that was the most valuable reading because it takes away all fear of death.
Definitely.
Yeah.
My goodness.
All it was
my
this
goodness.
light, like a blinding light inside my head.
Yeah.
I can say there wasn't hypoxia because I was not hypoxic.
That's right. That's right. You saw something that was very real. Now, with that light, does every single person who dies go through that?
I don't know. How would I know? I don't know how to answer that question. All I know
okay.
is
Well, I thought it was a good question.
All I can tell you is that
because
woman did.
She did.
Is the spelling?
Yeah.
Excuse me. Kay, is the spelling of your first name a family name, or because of the C instead of the K?
It's a name my grandmother had. My great-grandmother chose as my great-grandmother from Ireland. It's Winifred Catherine, Catherine. My first name is Winifred, and nobody calls anybody Winifred anymore. So my grandmother was Winifred Catherine. My mother was Winifred Catherine. I'm Winifred Catherine. Even my father's mother was Winifred.
For heaven's sake.
Oh, my goodness.
I kept getting a flip here on the name, and that's why I had to ask, because that's my forte, looking at the spelling of things. And there's something, it gives you good communication skills, but there's something else underneath it. That's why I had to ask. Okay, now I feel better.
Right, it's because nobody calls anybody Winifred anymore. And everyone in my family was very excellent. Grandmother was Win, mother was Winnie, and I ended up being Kay because they ran out of shortening names for Winifred.
I'll be done. Amazing.
Oh, goodness. What an exciting life you lead.
Yes, for sure. Pyramid. I am self-actualized. I love my life. I'm a joyful person because I'm a minister. And, I get to minister and get to paint and do all kinds of fiber arts and that kind of thing too. So
wonderful.
It's a hoot, guys. It's a hoot. It really is. But I appreciate having a chance to meet both of you and to talk to you and to talk a bit about the real nature, the deeper nature of me.
And I want to tell everybody again your website. Your website is Kay, spelled CAYRANDALL May.com. So if you want to set up your own session, private session with Dr. Kay for medical intuition or anything else, because as you see, there's a wide range of topics to bring to Kay's door and have her help you with them. That's the website to go to, and you can set up your sessions with her from there. I highly recommend that you do that. Anybody who is struggling with any health issues or has technical questions or other questions, just as Kay mentioned earlier in the interview, just about your life in general, relationships, everyday life, etc., family, then get a session with Kay. Very, very enlightening, very much worth the time and effort to take a deeper look.
Definitely.
So thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Kay. This has been so helpful, so
very
enlightening, and oh my goodness, we're going to have you back and talk about more of this. Obviously, we could talk all night about this, right? And again, I know our audience has been wanting us to bring a really great medical intuitive onto the show, and we were lucky enough to meet you. So again, many thanks for joining us this evening.
And thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate meeting you and having an opportunity to talk about these topics, which to me are really fun to talk about and explore.
They really are.
For sure.
Yes. And I think maybe next time we'll have you back when you have some time. We'll talk about this interdimensional connection. So that's a big one for us. We'd love to do that.
Interspecies communication, which is not only the species like your cat, dog, your goldfish, but the interdimensional species as well. We are not alone in the universe, guys. There's no wasted space in the universe.
No, that's for sure. If we think we are, we're in trouble.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's true, PK. We're in big trouble if we think like that. But thank goodness we don't. So this has been great, and we'd love to have you back to talk about interspecies communication. So we'll be back in touch to see when it suits your schedule. And in the meantime, everybody, we'll be back next week with another great show. We are going to be broadcasting live a little bit earlier to accommodate the schedule of our guest, who is Bishop Long. He's going to be coming to talk about all the exciting work he's doing. You'll be very intrigued with what he's up to. So we'll be broadcasting 6:45 to 7:45 p.m. Eastern Time next week. So be sure to join us. And until then, we will see you on the Blue Highway. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for another radio adventure with Supernatural.